You might have already heard about how California is using about 1,000 inmates who are in their fire conservation program to fight the fires that are out there now. And this is a program that they've had and has been established since the 1980s. You might not be clear on the details about how exactly that works. As you can expect, they are paid pretty much slave wages, maximum of $26 per day for 24-hour work day in order to go out there and risk their lives. They get 2 days off their sentence for every day that they serve in an active fire situation, which is really not that much. There's a whole bunch of caveats of how that works, who qualifies for it, what they're able to do. They're not allowed to use the fire hoses. They basically do a lot of the off-season work to clean up brush. And during these types of situations, there's emergency authorization to do other things. Here's what I can't find anywhere in the data, though, is how many of the conservation inmate program participants have died in these fires. I know of at least a few that happened over a 2-year period, but there's no data, and I couldn't reach their press office today, which is to be expected, to find that information out. I did find out, though, that they are 8 times more likely to suffer a serious injury on the job than regular firefighters. They're oftentimes given hand-me-down equipment, things that are broken, suits that are not sealed, because they're not going to complain, because then they get kicked out of the program. And this has been what many of the program's former participants have said. The kicker, the worst part of this is that when they get out, they cannot become a firefighter, not without first getting their record expunged. Now, that is a very expensive and lengthy process. It takes time. You could wait the 4 years that California started enacting last year for automatic expungement if you haven't been rearrested and you've fulfilled all your obligations. But that's 4 years of not having a job that can be very difficult when you've been working, some of these people, for years as a firefighter, as a conservation firefighter. And the worst part is that last November, there was a ballot initiative to end essential slavery in the prison system that failed. It had no opposition, and it failed like 45 to 55%. The previous election cycle, there was opposition to it. And in fact, it was an economic council in California that came out and said that it would cost taxpayers $1.5 billion if they had to actually pay people to do the work that they were having prison slaves do. And it failed that time as well. And of course, the U.S. Constitution still allows for involuntary servitude if you're convicted of a crime, which is slavery for prisoners. And that's one of the things that people who advocated against prison reform and legal reform said. They said, well, if you get rid of all the prisoners, then 50% of the firefighter force that comes from inmates would disappear. And that's exactly what happened, is because people were no longer being imprisoned for small misdemeanor crimes that they should never have been in prison for in the first place, and that includes a lot of drug-related offenses. They lost 50% of their inmate program. And that inmate program makes up 30% of the state's entire firefighting force. So this is like a rabbit hole of awfulness that these people are going through while they're out there risking their lives. They can't complain or they'll get removed from the program. They have no right to sue if they get injured due to neglect or faulty equipment that they're given. Their families do not get first responder death benefits if they die. They get no benefits whatsoever. It is a perfect storm of taking advantage of very desperate people who have no rights, who are risking their lives, and the least that society could do for them is let them continue to do that job and to continue to risk their lives to save people afterwards. And it is incredibly difficult to do so. Until just recently, it was impossible to do so. And so this is, I'm still digging into it. I'm trying to get numbers about how many of the people who have been reported killed in this fire are members of that inmate conservation program, because there's 11 people killed. There's 5 civilians that they've identified, 1 firefighter they have identified. But I just was on hold for like 2 hours to speak to the, I guess it's not LAPD, LAFD, about how many of those victims that aren't identified were inmates, and they don't know. I was straight up told they don't know. And so this is, Jesus, this needs to be fixed. This needs to be changed. And I'm sorry for the long rant and the long video. It's a lot of information. I'm going to write it up and post it to mesoscalenews.com. But it's not right. and it needs to stop.